Hi, how's it going? This is Razan of Colin for YouTube back with another video for you guys and gals. I'm here to talk about legends and how legends tie into stories or how they can be used within the frame of a story. Now, the best example of this is Friday the 13th. When you start with Jason's drowning, you have to ask yourself, well, did he drown? Now, me and my buddy Butch Rosenbaum, um, we've did I think two videos on Friday the 13th, and Butch explained this really well about he could have drowned, but then someone could have found him, being whoever, and resuscitated him. Or, as I think we both sort of alluded to in a video we did, was that Jason may have not actually went into the water at all. I'd say, well, why would someone make that up? Well, this is how legends start, okay? Legends are a story, but the story gets more, not convoluted, I don't want to say that word, but when someone tells a story, they believe something may have happened in their mind when something actually didn't happen. And we say, well, they're lying. No, it's just what they believe happened. It's not a lie to them if they believe it, from a fictional sense. And what you have is you have a legend that grows and grows and grows off of one piece of information that someone feels is correct. So let's say, for argument's sake, Pamela Voorhees came out looking for her son, and a bunch of the kids said, "Oh, Jason went into the lake." Now, did he, or did they say he went into the lake? You understand? There's. Is that something they assumed? You understand? That's sort of what I'm alluding to. That from a fictional sense, when we get into legend, the legend part of a story is usually when somebody tells something that isn't necessarily true, but again, it's not a lie to them because they believe it. Or, for more of a, in our own time reference, Bigfoot. Okay. There are people who believe in Bigfoot. Now, I don't, but that doesn't mean Bigfoot isn't real or it's a lie. It says I don't believe in it personally. But people who do, do. And there's legends around Bigfoot. Well, there are people seeing Bigfoot. That's a legend, you know. And it gets, when you also look at legend of Jason's drowning, you go, okay, who saw him drown? We don't know persons. We don't know who personally saw him drown. We don't know the names of the people who saw him drown. We just hear that he drowned, that a boy drowned in Crystal Lake. Then we hear the boy's name was Jason from the mother later in the movie. Well, that's a legend. I mean, no, I'm not meaning that to be, vague or sarcastic or at all. I'm talking about when you get into a fictionalized story of characters. In stories that we love and know, legend tends to grow and grow and grow the longer it goes. So not just Jason's drowning, but post Jason's drowning. In Friday the 13th, Jason is called a legend because, well, you know, she thought he drowned. She thought. Again, we're getting that confirmation in two that she thought, that Jason's mother thought he drowned. Well, so did everybody else. Because the drowning was what? A legend. The drowning was not a factual. Again, this is before the whole thing. I don't know how many people have heard of the missing 411. If you have, great. If you haven't, I'm not really gonna. I don't really want to get into the explanation, so I'll leave a link in the description box of what that is. But I'll leave to the Lore Lodge channel. I watch their channel a lot. Great channel, by the way. Shout out to those guys, Aiden, and I forget the other guy's name. I apologize, but his tech guy. Um, Great channel. So Jason, if Jason went missing today, or disappeared in a campground, he wouldn't have been assumed that he drowned. He would have been missing 411, because that's and when you don't see Jason anymore, if you're the camp counselors and you're at a camp that's around a lake, built around a lake, where your natural assumption is what? Well, he drowned. So that assumption becomes the story. The story becomes a legend because you didn't see him drown. Do you understand? That's the legend. Now, does this ever apply to, let's say, Michael Myers? That's where it's interesting. Yes, to a degree. Let me explain. The biggest one is in Halloween 2. There's a character in there who's talking about Michael Myers around Bud and Jimmy, I think his name is. And she says that on her way to work, Jill saw Michael walking behind the Lost River Drive and yesterday when she was on her way to work. Well, here's the problem with that. He escaped the last night, not yesterday. Now, you could say, well, that gets fact checked. That's not a legend. You're right. It gets fact checked there. Julie is not on staff for tonight, the character. It's a character we never actually see or literally meet. So just because it got fact checked here in that moment of that movie, when we think about a fictional character, it doesn't mean it got fact checked somewhere else. So she could have said to other people, "Oh yeah, I saw that Michael guy." Now here's the kicker: by the time she's told that story once, it's going to change. And what I mean by that is she's not going to say, "Oh, she saw him last night." Oh, I saw him today. I saw him today walking. That's where that'll change because she will have heard on the news, "Oh, Michael escaped last night." And you might say, "Well, she's lying then, isn't she?" Yes, but again, that's how legends tend to happen. Now, not all legends are lies, but you get what I'm saying. That now, if she didn't change it, if she didn't change her story, uh, then someone's going to correct her because nobody's going to let that go. Okay, no, he didn't escape last night. You didn't see Michael walking behind the Lesser Driven. Now, where legends sort of could take place in Halloween as a franchise, whether you get into the original 8 movies or David Gordon Green's or Rob Zombie's, is somebody could have saw him after he escaped, or maybe think they saw him. Again, that's what somebody is doing in Halloween 2. They thought they saw Michael, even though he didn't escape until last night, behind the Lost River Driving. So that's where a legend was almost born, but it got shot down, at least amongst those people. Now, if it got repeated, which we don't know if it did or didn't, by this Julie person who we never see again, who we never see at all, if it got repeated and with the same dialect, and that would be a question I'd love to get answered one day. I don't think we ever will. But did she repeat the story to other people? Not just her friend who works as a nurse, but to others. Because if you told one person, you've told another. That's usually the logic with that. When you've told your story about this, "Oh, I saw that guy, he was creepy." Now, that's a great description, Michael. He is creepy, that mask and stuff. But when you say about the date, if she didn't switch the date, it's going to get corrected. No, he didn't escape the last night. You didn't see him, And it's not that you're trying to call this woman a liar, but in all the excitement, she could have thought that he was already out. She could have thought she saw him. Again, not all lies are deliberate lies with when you're getting into legend. Again, somebody, let's take John Carpenter's Halloween, for example. Could somebody have actually, when you get into Halloween 1 and 2, could somebody have seen Michael? Sure. Look, Tommy, not just Tommy, but Lonnie Lamb sees Michael Myers, but he actually sees him. Now, maybe some other kid saw him just standing there and says about it. But here's the thing, did that kid? What if we don't actually see that kid's seeing this? Is his story false? No, not necessarily, because we didn't see it. Is it true? We don't know. And if they show you that he thought he saw Michael, or he saw somebody walking that looked like could be Michael but wasn't, then that's, yes, a lie, but it's also partially a legend, because you have, if no one ever confirms who he saw exactly, then we have to leave it. He may have saw Michael. We don't know. Again, legends are really strange, because the hardest thing with legends is, how do you prove they're real from a fictional sense? Jason is one that a lot of people um, they go, I don't really believe in Jason Voorhees from a fictional sense. There are people who do, like that psychiatrist in Seven. He believed in Jason all the way, and it cost him his life. Uh, now, to sort of go back to Halloween as well, think of Halloween H2O. Think of the story of Michael Myers in Halloween H2O. Everyone believed he burned to death, but no one found a body. We hear that nobody found a body. And we also hear that when the detectives are talking, one detective says, "Well, look for a guy with cane and old timers," and the other detective says, "Well, he'd be younger than me. I was what, 17 when he murdered his sister, I think he says, or something like that. He was a teenager." So you have that. When the detective says, "Look for a guy with cane and old timers," though he's being sarcastic, that is misinformation. It's just, here's a guy who doesn't want to buy the legend of Michael, because he's probably heard some things over the years that just don't add up. Okay, how could this guy survive this explosion? Sure, he didn't find a body. It was a pile of ashes. There's some people, or maybe, just maybe, the paramedics slipped up. Maybe they did find his body, or they went to find his body, and it just disappeared. Again, we don't know. Now, we do know Michael's alive, obviously, but that's sort of the thing. When you get into Halloween H12, you sort of have to look at what you know from Halloween 1 and 2, and okay, how did Michael avoid capture here? He clearly came out of the room and passed out. When they pulled Laurie out and went back for him, was he just gone? Um, you know, Now, here's the real kicker with this. Are they all lying? No. They Because what we don't really get in Halloween H2O is what? We don't really get a full-fledged account of how things went fully down, though we know from a canon standpoint how they went down. What I mean by this is, okay, Laurie Strode's lines are key here, and so are John Tate's. John Tate tells his mother, "You said you yourself you saw him burn." Now think about that. When he went out, the only way she saw him actually burning is when he came out of the room. So she said she didn't see his body. So how does this change? How does H2O sort of change, Two's canon a bit? Well, because maybe in Lori's mind, she's not sure whose body she saw. Maybe it was Loomis's to her. Now, he was wearing a mask, clearly. But could you tell that with the fucking flames going? No, couldn't. Till he fell on the floor. Uh, again, it's really interesting when you think about that. So, legend goes that Michael supposedly burned to death. But also, the legend is, well, no one found his body. Did they or didn't they? Again, that's sort of where Halloween gets into legend a bit. Because the legend is, well, they didn't find his body. But how? They don't, if this body was laying there, it was cooking like a steak on a goddamn grill, how didn't they find it? And again, that sort of gets into legend too. This is why I say legends are really fun to write within a story because legends bring a whole new sort of look to the characters we love and know. They bring a look love and know to Michael, to Jason. Sure, they're confusing as fuck, but they're not so confusing we can't try to wrap our heads around them. Now, some legends you might say, well, the detective who says Michael Myers, yeah, right, in Halloween, show he never sees Michael. So to him, this is all bullshit. Now, is he wrong? He's not wrong to him. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't literally go to California to see the events unfold. So to him, this is just some random murderer who happened by and decided to kill some people. It's probably ruled as an unsolved homicide. That's what it's probably listed as, too. And you sort of gotta wonder, are the police just that lazy? Well, no, they're just, again, you're dealing with a character who literally appears every one October 30th and 31st and appears out of nowhere. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with a character like that? For if you're the cops, you just say, he's dead. He burned up in a hospital. I think he'd be, if he were alive, he'd be so old. So you're sort of building your own legend in your own mind. But he isn't really that old. He's not older than you. He's actually younger than you. Again, this is what I mean by building a legend. Legends get built off of sometimes off of a character's perception because they don't really care to actually understand what's really going on. So they build their own perception or own legend in their mind of what they feel happened. Now, whether, they're not necessarily diverting from full facts of what did happen, but they're also adding to them with their own deductions. To that cop, Michael burned up, he's dead. That's why he's really saying yeah, right. At least that's my takeaway from Halloween. So you could have a different one. If you feel the cop really just feels, oh, this is some bullshit copycat killer, that could be the case too for him. Um, Now, when you get into Friday the 13th, and you're looking at the legend of Jason, the question becomes, how do you get people to believe in a legend? Well, they either do or they don't. And some people don't. Again, we live in a social media world, but when you're reading about legends on social media, would somebody go and check out a legend like Jason? Yeah, probably there would be some crazy people would go and do that sort of thing. Uh, but they wouldn't be coming back. Again, it's what I mean. Legends are fun to sort of. They're a huge part of storytelling, and they become a huge part because what was, yes, what is known as fact, but what people perceive as their own facts are two different entirely things, and it's how legends manifest. Again, it doesn't mean they're necessarily telling you a direct lie as a character. Here's a great example. If you sit down with Tommy Doyle and Laurie Strode, if you put them both in an interrogation room, I bet their stories aren't exactly the same. And here's what I mean by that. When Michael, or sorry, when Tommy saw Michael slash the boogeyman, isn't the same way Laurie saw him. You know, there's a difference there. Laurie didn't see Michael carrying Annie's body in the house. Tommy did. So that's what I mean by there's a different. Their stories would differ to a degree because they saw different things at different times. And it's not that their stories are wrong. It's just that it differs. Now, where their story would be the same would be when they're on that landing. You can't kill the boogeyman. Clearly, they're gonna say, "Well, our babysitter fought off the boogeyman," but maybe there's an audience to say, "Well, our babysitter fought off Michael Myers." Again, you're not always going to hear the same account from certain characters. Some two characters might see the exact same thing, but you might not get the exact same story of how they saw it. And what I mean by that is angles, the person where one person was standing compared to the other. Look, Laurie sees someone that we know as Michael, go behind a hedge. Okay. And he doesn't see this guy. Well, there was somebody standing there behind that bush. He just went by that bush. And I think it was the guy he yelled at. And Annie goes over, and, "Oh, Bob, what's the big idea?" And there's somebody there. Now, does Annie believe Lord? She did believe Lord until she didn't see anybody there. It's like, okay, you're just messing with me. And Annie could sort of view it that way too. But is Annie wrong? No. She didn't see no guy. Again, a person's perspective in a story often differs from another person because they may not have seen the exact same thing, or they saw the same thing from a different angle. And he didn't see Michael. Tommy and Laurie did, but not from the same point of view, not from the same perspective, not from, how do I put this? Tommy keeps referring to Michael's boogeyman. Laurie doesn't really believe that's some boogeyman. She knows it's a person underneath that mask. There's that. There's a difference between being a scared kid and a petrified teenage girl. And it shows. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this little fun video I put together for you guys. Have a good night.